Revered as one of the most faithful adaptations of the Tales of the Dark Knight, Batman the Animated Series holds a special place in the hearts of many fans of the legendary superhero, and for good reason. Apart from giving audiences a broad scope of Batman's adventures through Gotham City, the show also took an incredibly mature and encompassing approach to the Caped Crusader, combining the light with the dark to impart what I genuinely believe to be the definitive incarnation of the Dark Knight, and that goes for any medium. Of course, taking such an approach meant that the show wound up with some incredibly dark material. I mean, literally, the show was boarded on black paper, but you get the gist. Everyone holds a special place in their hearts for BTAS. Yes, I have changed the pronunciation. That's growth, baby. And especially for those episodes that took us to some seriously dark territory. So yes, it's DCAU time once again. I'm Ewan, this is What Culture Comics, and here are the 10 darkest Batman the Animated Series episodes. Number 10. Growing Pains. Starting off this list with one of the most deeply disturbing episodes in the entire series, Growing Pains. When Robin encounters an amnesiac runaway called Annie, the boy wonder takes it upon himself to protect her from a strange man who is chasing her down. We learn close to the end that Annie is actually a part of Clayface that got detached and gained sentience, so this was only ever going to end badly. The episode ends with Annie reabsorbing into Clayface, thus killing herself to save Robin. And yes, it is pretty rough to watch a young girl merge into a giant clay monster, thank you for asking. Robin is rightly devastated by the whole thing, having developed feelings for Annie, and it's just pretty sad all around. Number 9. Double Talk. Oh man, poor Arnold Wesker. If ever there was a Batman villain who absolutely 100% deserved our sympathy, it was him. After all, living with a murderous other personality that manifests in a Prohibition-era puppet gangster can't be fun, especially when it's that creepy. Ugh. In the episode Double Talk, the ventriloquist is released from Arkham under a rehabilitative program and is looked after by Bruce Wayne, proving yet again that Bats isn't the cold-hearted stereotype some like to claim. Sadly, Wesker displays signs of ill health as figments of the puppet Scarface start to dominate his consciousness. Coupled with the arrival of old goons he once knew, it looks like the ventriloquist can't escape a life of servitude for that awful old puppet. Seriously, it is so creepy. This carries on until it is revealed that the manifestations of Scarface were not in his psyche, but real-world impersonations and manipulations brought on by con men and crooks. Beneath the whole creepy doll gimmick, you see a character so deeply entrenched and traumatized by their own psychosis that they struggle to function in the real world. Coupled with the fact that we actively see a man with a mental illness being abused, and the whole episode makes for not so light children's entertainment. Number 8. Lockup. While it's always threatened, Batman losing restraint and really going after the criminals of Gotham is something we don't really see in the cartoon world. Batman's discipline prevents him from ever crossing that kind of line. But the same cannot be said about the guards at Arkham Asylum, and for head of security Lyle Bolton, who pretty much typifies everything wrong with law enforcement and stands for everything Batman doesn't. The implication that Lyle has been abusing the inmates at Arkham might roll off the back of some viewers, but when we dig a little bit deeper and learn he gets a twisted, vengeful pleasure from doing it, there's an ease in the character. It comes as a worse surprise when we learn that Bruce Wayne recommended Lyle as head of security for Arkham Asylum. Eeeh. After being expelled, Lyle returns as an armored Punisher-like figure who is disgusted that Batman would show concern for the very criminals he brings to Arkham, which proves that he should probably read some more Batman comics because Batman's entire thing is trying to help a lot of the villains he puts behind bars. Seriously, it's pretty obvious. Lockup is an episode that is very easy to forget, but also might tell one of the best stories in the entire series. We've asked conflicting questions about Batman and whether he created the villains he fights many times in the past, but the idea of Batman inspiring actual villains to fight in the name of quote-unquote justice is probably even worse. Number 7. Mad as a Hatter. The Mad Hatter was always one of the least threatening villains in Batman's rogues gallery, but he really set a more disturbing disturbing psychological tone in his debut episode in the first season of Batman animated series. Jervis Tetch's obsession with Alice in Wonderland is already enough to make audiences weary, but what unfolds is his worrying romantic entitlement for a co-worker at Wayne Enterprises. What we're essentially seeing here is the rise of a misogynistic stalker, whose own warped worldview justifies to himself kidnapping and entrapping poor Alice, and any other woman who looks like the character from that book. The threats Batman faces every night tend to vary between Joker's poisonous gases and a puzzle-diffused bomb set by Riddler, and while he does follow that same thread in this episode, fighting mind-controlled minions in giant theater costumes, the underlying motivations of the villain are what creeps us all out deep down. Jervis is obsessed with his co-worker Alice because of her name and appearance, giving us a once-over glimpse into the Mad Hatter's psychology and the legitimate fears many women face when they encounter quote-unquote nice guys. The Mad Hatter stalking and entrapping women is terrifying enough, but the suggestion of him acquiring mind control as well makes him all the more sinister. Number 6. Nothing to Fear. Now, there are definitely darker Scarecrow episodes out there, but his original debut is still the stuff of nightmares. Scarecrow would undergo more designs than any other Bat villain over the course of BTAS, and while his first one is a little cartoonish, it still genuinely gets under my skin because it was my first introduction to the character. The fear gas sequences are thoroughly creepy, and the flashback that details Jonathan Crane's university years is remarkably well done as well. The image of that poor student getting swarmed by spiders is just... oh god, it's got me acting like Jeff Daniels from Arachnophobia here. Ugh. Side note, go watch Arachnophobia. It's a good film. With John Goodman. It's great. But back to BTAS now, and the crowning moment of the entire episode is when Bruce stands up to a fear gas hallucination of his parents, and we get that iconic Kevin Conroy, "I am the night" speech. It's my Batman voice. Number 5. See No Evil. In an episode that should be used to teach stranger danger awareness classes in schools, See No Evil is an early episode of the series that shows Batman tango with 2019's The Invisible Man. The antagonist of the series is a deranged former convict who, in the midst of a failed custody battle for his daughter, uses an invisibility suit to charm and pretend to be his own daughter's imaginary friend. The episode could have gone a number of ways, but the writers decided instead to focus on a very small scale and personal story that, while may not seem dramatic to children, is a frighteningly real scenario. Well, bar the invisible suit, but still. The episode reveals that prolonged exposure to the invisibility suit turns the convicted father into an aggressive and psychotic mess. And even worse, as we catch glimpses of frustrated hubris as he begins to scare his own daughter. The darkness of the episode doesn't come from the villain, but the subject matter itself. Real-life stories have told the tale of countless separated parents kidnapping their own children, and for a show about Batman to translate this theme into a 20-minute episode makes for a deep-rooted and honestly upsetting watch. Number 4. Feet of Clay. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one because, well, it's Feet of Clay. Well, partially because it's so terrifying I don't want to talk about it, and also because it's one of the most famous and most lauded BTAS episodes ever. There is so much nightmare fuel packed into this episode. The opening with an evil Bruce Wayne who's actually Matt Hagen in disguise, the sequence where they force-feed the chemical solution down his throat, the finale, all of it cements Feet of Clay as one of the darkest Batman animated series episodes ever released. Number 3. Torch Song. Firefly isn't exactly the most notorious Batman villain in the world, but this episode still sticks out as being especially dark, grim, and deeply disturbing. And I say that because this particular episode, like so many others in the show's library, could be ripped straight from the comics themselves. The plot follows Batman and Batgirl's attempts to protect Cassidy, a famous pop star, from an obsessed and violent ex-boyfriend who's actually Firefly. The grimness of the episode comes from Firefly's idea that, if he cannot have Cassidy, then no one can. He is another abusive ex capable of causing serious harm, and again, bar the whole flying insect gimmick, it's a story that's grounded in real-life horror. Even worse is the ending, which reveals that Cassidy is not over the trauma she endured thanks to Firefly. As her publicist yammers on about how she could use the fire for her next tour, Cassidy stares into a nearby open flame, and it's clear she is still dealing with severe, untreated PTSD. Number 2. Joker's favor. The Joker in the animated series is a curious one to describe. Extraordinarily funny, a little passive at times, but mountains of crazy. And while Batman, Robin, Gordon, and the cops of Gotham have gone toe-to-toe with him many times in the past, we never think of what would happen if a civilian ever crossed paths with him. That is, until we got Joker's favor, an episode that scared me to death when I was tiny. That terrifying visage of Joker in his car following our lead, the idea of living every year in fear of a killer clown, yeah, nightmare fuel. Joker's favor follows Charlie, a Gothamite who is already having a pretty bad day, and in an example of one of the worst renditions of road rage ever, accidentally encounters the clown prince of crime. What follows is a very haunting, if not occasionally comical impression of Joker's mania. Acting as something akin to a horror movie, Charlie flees Gotham in fear of the Joker, but finds himself looking over his shoulder at every turn. Now, a lot of the episodes here are genuine examples of real-life situations a person can find themselves in, and the fear factor that comes with crossing the Joker could not be more evident in this episode. Not that you'll ever actually cross paths with the real-life Joker because he doesn't exist, but you know, the actual terror itself of being followed and stalked, that hits really close to home. We don't know who Charlie is, and by all accounts, he's probably a decent human being. We feel genuine fear for him as Joker manipulates and taunts the poor Gothamite into doing his bidding. Until, of course, he turns the tables. Go get him, Charlie. And number 1, Over the Edge. The cataclysmic episode that is Over the Edge sums up what BTAS was all about, and in particular, its more nightmarish qualities. The episode sees Batman becoming a fugitive of the law as Jim Gordon mounts an assault on Wayne Manor and the Batcave. The jig is all but up for the Caped Crusader, and it all stems from the death of none other than Batgirl. The tragic loss of Barbara Gordon was already a gut punch, and for a kids show, the presentation of her death is one that was seared into our brains for years to come. Commissioner Gordon's non-giving up guy tenacity to hunt down Batman and his allies is truly frightening, but it also exposes how Bats betrayed his trust and put his daughter in the firing line. Yes, it was Babs' decision at the end of the day, but still, it takes a lot of bottle to keep that kind of secret hidden from one of your closest and oldest allies. Yes, I guess this was another dream episode, and one concocted by Scarecrow, but it conjured a terrifying Elseworld scenario, and one of the series' best ever stories. And yeah, that was our list on the darkest ever Batman the Animated Series episodes. Which episodes do you think have the most nightmarish qualities? Let us know down in the comments below, and please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Remember, you can find more stuff like this at whatculture.com/comics, and more of me on Twitter at @YouandRuinsThings. That's all for now though, keep reading comics, and I'll see you next time. Bye!